See, that's the thing about passport privilege and white privilege. Your stupidity is rewarded with brand deals. Meanwhile, if that was me with my Bangladeshi passport, I can guarantee you I would have been detained, jailed, and deported.
Happy Tuesday morning. I'm going to talk about white privilege today and some examples that I've seen recently and some personal examples that I've had over the years with law enforcement. And conceptually, you know, people get really bent out of shape. People who look like me get really bent out of shape when you bring up the phrase white privilege. And they say it doesn't exist, it's not a real thing. It's an absolute real thing. And you can look at the protests that we've seen over the course of this year, since Election Day, since Inauguration Day, and you compare the response to law enforcement to the protests that we've seen that this year have been comprised, those protests have been comprised almost exclusively of white people. We haven't seen the militarized response on the part of law enforcement. We haven't, that's certainly not the response that we saw in the summer of 2020 in response to the Black Lives Matter protests. And specifically, what I observed this past Saturday during the No Kings protest is that when I marched in the protest, my brother and I both marched together in the protest in San Francisco, I saw one motorcycle police officer about an hour before the protest was scheduled to start, and he was helping to direct traffic. Along the entire protest route, from Dolores Park, up Dolores Street to Market Street, down Market Street to Van Ness Street, Van Ness Avenue, up Van Ness, across Grove to Civic Center. Along that entire route, I did not see one single police officer at all. And the only other police officers that I saw that day were after the march was over. There were a couple of motorcycle cops who were parked up against the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium looking at their phones. And, you know, you compare these protests to the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, the police response, the law enforcement response. I mean, I saw multiple videos, live streams of protests during the summer of 2020, where during the day police officers were mingling with protesters, taking photos with them, taking photos of them all like taking a knee. And then when we got close to dusk, those same officers would put their riot gear on and go to town and cause violence and cause injuries. And that's one observation. And that was quite obvious to me on this past Saturday. So what is white privilege? I mean, it can have a lot of different definitions in a lot of different contexts, but to me it simply means that the color of my skin has never made my life more difficult. The color of my skin has never made specific instances or circumstances in my life more difficult or more dangerous, as well as there have been specific instances and circumstances in my life where I firmly believe that the color of my skin has worked to my benefit in a way that it would not happen for people who don't look like me. And, you know, in 2020, I had been a gun owner when I lived in Ohio. I moved out here about 25 years ago. I hadn't owned any guns while I lived in San Francisco or California. In 2020, I decided it was time to get some firearms again. And two of the purchases that I made, I bought a very, very high-end, expensive AR-15 type rifle, and I bought a top-of-the-line optic to go on top of that. It's another version of a scope. I have a red dot optic where I look through that. There's a red dot. I put the red dot on the target that I'm shooting at the range, and it helps you hit your target. That type of firearm, I have the civilian version. It's a weapon that is issued to special forces in the United States military. It's a weapon that's commonly owned by law enforcement in the United States. And the optic that I purchased is also very commonly used by law enforcement in the United States. Each of those items came with a sticker. And I put those two stickers on the bottom lower left corner of the rear window on my car, advertising that I am a gun owner, and these are two of the things that I own. Since doing that, I've been pulled over 3 or 4 times for, mainly for things like speeding on the 5, on Highway 5, either going to or coming from Los Angeles. In 2 or 3 of those instances where I was very clearly speeding by a significant amount, the CHP troopers, it was the same thing each time. They would come up, I'd have my license, registration, proof of insurance ready. They'd take that information from me, and they'd be like, hey, I noticed your stickers. Do you have any firearms in your vehicle today? And I would always say, like, nope, today's not a range day. Nothing in the car. No request that I step out of the vehicle, no request to search my vehicle, no demand that I open up the back of my car for them to look. Then they would go run my information. They would come back. They would see that I don't have any warrants, haven't had any moving violations in a long time. We would have a pleasant conversation about firearms, and then they would give me a warning, and I would leave. And that was that. I think those interactions would have gone dramatically differently if I was not a white man. There was one time that I was pulled over on my way home from the gun range, and I told the officer, I have 2 handguns in the back of my car, my ammo bags on the front seat. I'm coming home from the gun range. And again, didn't put his hand on his gun, didn't draw his weapon, didn't point his weapon at me, didn't demand that I get out of the vehicle, didn't demand that I open up the back of my car and show him the guns, which I offered to do. And again, I got a warning and was sent on my way. And, he didn't call for backup. There was none of that kind of stuff. There was no escalation of any kind. I'm not licensed to carry a firearm in the state of California. I had 2 of them in my vehicle that day. I was transporting them in a manner that was consistent with California law, but the officer involved in that stop did nothing to escalate it. Now I want to talk about a young man named Philando Castile, a 32-year-old African-American man who was fatally shot during a traffic stop outside of St. Paul, Minnesota on July 6, 2016. He's 32 years old. He was with his girlfriend and her 4-year-old daughter. Officers pulled him over because he had a broken brake light. One of the officers had previously radioed that he was going to pull over this car. The 2 occupants just looked like people that were involved in a robbery. The driver looks like one of our suspects. When they pulled him over, he said, officer, I am carrying a handgun. I am licensed to carry a handgun. The officer, whose last name was Yanez, said, well, don't reach for it. He was like, I'm not reaching for it. The officer said, don't pull it out. And Philando said, I'm not pulling it out. And the officer said, don't pull it out, and then fired 7 shots at Philando Castile. He hit him 5 times, twice in the heart. His girlfriend said, you just killed my boyfriend. She started live streaming on Facebook. Mr. Castile died of his injuries despite lawfully carrying a handgun and having a license or a permit to do that, which he immediately informed the officers, the officer who came up to his window. The officer shot and killed him anyway. Even though he didn't reach for his gun, the officer never saw his gun, but Philando Castile was black. That officer was charged with 2nd-degree manslaughter, 2 counts of dangerous discharge of a firearm, and he was acquitted by a jury following a jury trial. And so people who think that white privilege is not real, I would like you to watch this video. Some of the information here is anecdotal from my own personal experiences, obviously. But that's how those are some of the circumstances of how I have benefited from being a white man and a gun owner in the United States, even when interacting with law enforcement, that clearly those types of interactions would go on a different way if I was not a white man, and I firmly believe that.
Hello guys, and welcome to the channel again. Kindly like, subscribe and share as we go on with the journey of trying to awaken. So white privilege has for the longest time been made to seem like it's a norm, it's something normal to be taking place, and what a white person is always a few steps ahead of a person who is not white, in this case a black man or woman, because there are privileges that come with whatever it's going on with the system, you see. So just like we've watched in the video, this guy here, he has encountered a lot of times that if tables were turned and it was a black man out there, he or she probably would have been unalived and or would have been jailed. In this case, me saying a black man is the general term for either a man or a woman. If you would be out there roaming around with guns in your possession, whether licensed or not, you would have gone through a hard time with the system in the US. The system in the US has made it normal for the black man to always have to fight for his or her position in the country, be it in schools, in the courts, anywhere that he or she would want to be involved in. They have to fight for their position. They have to fight for their position in that you have nothing that is fully entitled to you. You have to prove that you need it. You have to prove that it's something that you have a use for it. You have to show that it has to have a value for you in order for you to gain it. For example, there has been many cases whereby a black man has gotten into a supermarket but has been constantly been followed by the attendants with the excuse that they might steal. You see, so this person technically assumes that you cannot actually afford whatever you're shopping for, you see. While a white person, maybe with an intent of stealing, will roam around and get away with whatever he was doing, you see. So we are in a system whereby the black man tries as hard as they can to be respected in the society, while a white man is already a step ahead and is only inheriting the privileges and the advantages that come with him being a white man. The white privilege has shown us that once you're black, you always have to constantly look over your shoulder. Whether you are on the right or the wrong side of the law, you always have to constantly look over your shoulder, because somebody else might come in and accuse you of looking like somebody they thought had done a mistake somewhere. While the white man out there is walking away freely without the fear of being judged, without the fear of somebody maybe racially profiling them. And this one has given a gap in the society, has widened the gap in the society. And as we understand that white privilege has widened the gap between the whites and blacks. Those are my short remarks, and I would like to ask you to kindly like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and let's grow together as we get to understand and build one another in this journey.